The Gauteng High Court in Pretoria has stated that the Communication and Technologies Minister's submission that he did not have to consult on the March 2025 Analogue Switch-Off deadline is not sustainable.
Now, this as Counsel on behalf of the Minister argued that it did not have to conduct or another round of consultations when setting the Analogue Switch-Off deadline to 31st March 2025.
Now, applicants are asking the court to halt the decision, which they argue will sever millions of South Africans' access to television, particularly the poor.
ETV is not necessarily litigating in this case to protect the interests of the poorest of the poor. It is litigating in this application to protect its own commercial interests. And we'll demonstrate why we say that. But most importantly, my Lord, it was suggested yesterday that the Constitutional Court in the ETV judgment rejected the argument that ETV was litigating for its own commercial interests. We submit that on the proper reading of the relevant paragraphs of the judgment, the Constitutional Court, in fact, did not reject the argument. In paragraph 102 of the judgment, to which my Lord has already been referred, well, firstly, starting with paragraph 101 of the judgment, that's where the Constitutional Court summarized the submissions made against the conduct of ETV in the litigation. The effect of it was simply that ETV has taken different positions about an analog switch-off date. Firstly, it had supported an expedited analog switch-off. And reference was made to the telecom case, which my Lord dealt with in 2021. In that case, ETV was motivating for an expedited analog switch-off. But in the case before the Constitutional Court, ETV had changed its position because it was litigating against analog switch-off. In paragraph 102 of the judgment, was the Constitutional Court said they do bear consideration. It highlighted that what was before it was in fact constitutional litigation, and it was more concerned about the lawfulness of the minister's conduct in that case, and so it didn't entertain those submissions. So it didn't then reject the argument. It just didn't deal with it.
All right, let's now speak to Media Monitoring Head at Media Monitoring Africa, Thandi Smith. Thandi, good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for your time. You and I have had a number of conversations about this very subject, and yet here we are again with another deadline that could potentially not materialize. What does this tell us about this process?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that, it's both depressing and shocking that we are here yet again challenging the date for the switch-off, for the analog switch-off. And I think I just need to start by saying we aren't against the switch-off, the analog switch-off. What we are fighting for is for it to be done following constitutional principles that will not leave millions of people in a blackout. And so what the key issue here is the process by which this is happening is, we believe, is unconstitutional. And so the date that we keep on having to go up against and to challenge is a date that gets set down by in this case, Cabinet, which is being challenged as well. But the date that is getting set down is setting up government for failure. And so our argument is about ensuring that we switch off analog signals when every person is able to maintain receiving television signals that won't leave them in a blackout.
And Thandi, that's the nub of it, right? Because ultimately, when you think about the fact that these deadlines are being set, and again, the argument has been make sure that nobody can be left behind, particularly the millions that are still even saying we don't even have set-top boxes. We still want to know what's going on at the post office. We're getting there. We're being sent from pillar to post. Some of the post offices are closed and we're not being able to get information as to what exactly is going on. And I suppose that is where the problem is. And when you're listening to the arguments in court, is it clear as to whether or not when these deadlines are being set, all systems are being put in place, or what else is at play here?
Well, no, I mean, not all systems are put in place. That's exactly why we're in this position that we find ourselves in. If processes and procedures were followed correctly and government ensured that people who needed the set-top boxes had access to them and the infrastructure was in place, we wouldn't be here, almost 2 decades later, years into the concept or the proposal of digital migration. And it seems that every step of the way, whether you're talking about, the infrastructure, whether you're talking about set-top boxes, whether you're talking about access and the cost of that, there seems to have been delay after delay at every sort of milestone, at every point. And so you have to ask yourself, where are the interests here? What agenda is being pursued? Why can't we get this right? And so, and again, the argument is, again, about consultation. If government had taken the order to consult meaningful public consultation, when they were supposed to, we wouldn't be sitting here having to go and use public resources to challenge a date that will ultimately leave almost 1.3 million people in the dark.
When you listen to the counsel on behalf of the minister, one of their arguments is that the minister didn't have to consult on this particular deadline and there mustn't be another round of consultations. And you've just hinted, right, at that particular process of consultation that could have actually helped. Let's speak about this at a practical level. What would this round of consultation, let's say the minister had adhered to that, what would it have entailed, particularly when you look at this deadline that we are looking ahead to now?
Well, the issue here, and it seems to be that one of the big challenges or roadblocks in this is the rate of installation of the set-top boxes. That is claimed to be one of the the big challenges. And given the opportunity to have meaningful consultations, one is able to provide the evidence, the information and the research, and the real lived reality of the challenges that people are facing, and to be able to take that into consideration, into planning. One of the issues that came out of the hearing today is that very little planning has been presented to the parties, to interested parties in the process. And if there's an inadequate planning or government is unable to offer planning to interested parties, there's very little meaningful participation and meaningful consultation that can actually take place. And again, we see how that hasn't materialized and hasn't worked. And so again, meaningful consultation, civil society, Media Monitoring Africa, as well as SOS, we aren't corporate, we aren't government, we aren't industry. And so we really are pushing for the public interest element here. And so we will bring forward different arguments and different evidence that will enable good, realistic and rational decision making.
And Thandi, as a final question then, of course this is playing out in the courts and it could go either way. We don't know, what the court will decide. But the fact that many years on, we're still talking about the possibility of a blackout for quite a number of, homes in South Africa, households who depend on information to be able to know exactly what's going on, and access to information is quite critical. The fact that we're having this conversation, even now, facing yet another deadline, do you think this can ever be done right or even happen once and for all?
I think if there's political will to make it happen, it can happen. I think that one of the arguments that we make is around fundamental human rights, and that's around freedom of expression. And alongside that is access to information. And, if these roadblocks and stumbling blocks are mitigated and you sort of take a step back and look at exactly how you are going to implement. I mean, I think that it is safe to say that we are further along in the process than we ever have been before. But it's almost, it's getting to the point where you need to ask, whether it's too late.
Thandi, and let's see then what the court decides. Thank you so much for chatting to us this afternoon. Appreciate it. That's Thandi Smith, the head of programs at Media Monitoring Africa.